Welcome to Virteva's Let's Talk Roadmap Rundown, the show where we talk through the latest updates, enhancements, and new features coming soon to Microsoft 365. It's Tuesday, September 17th. I'm Scott Ludwan, and today we're going to be talking about new sharing features coming soon to the new Microsoft Outlook experience, a handy way for admins to prevent spam messages in Microsoft Teams, a new feature in OneDrive to confirm deletions of shared content before deleting, and updates to Cloud.Microsoft domain changes and Microsoft's new name for commercial data protection in Microsoft Copilot. Before we get into the news for the week, we'd like to take an opportunity to ask you if you could please hit those like, subscribe, and share buttons to help our channel grow. We'd really appreciate that. Helps us get our message out to more people. We recently passed the 1,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. It would be awesome if we'd be able to hit 2,000 by the end of this year. So Chris, welcome back to the show. Excited to have you here. We've got 5 different announcements to run through this week. I'll get us kicked off with MC882252. There is a new feature coming to the new Microsoft Outlook for Windows that is going to enable a familiar feature from the classic version of Outlook, sharing Word, Excel, and PowerPoint local files directly through email. So this is going to be coming. It started rolling out mid-September, so basically right where we are right now, and it should be completed by mid-November. What this feature is many of you have probably already used it before in the old Outlook. You may have noticed that it doesn't work in the new Outlook if your organization has already kind of switched over to that. Let me put the post up on screen here real quick so you can see it.
Yeah, and that's the nuance with this one is that it's more specifically related to the new Outlook. And I don't know about everyone else out there, but I know there's been, in my just anecdotal experience, a mixed amount of organizations that have users that have already voluntarily transitioned to the new Outlook. And so there is this sort of inevitability to it that everyone's going to end up there eventually, particularly as Microsoft considers the classic Outlook no longer relevant and does what it can to push that below the waterline. But yeah, I mean, these are these kind of quality of life enhancements that I think are necessary for them to continue to add to quote unquote new Outlook, because there was a lot of functionality that did not exist. And I've forced myself to stick with it for about the past year now and have gotten pretty comfortable with it. But these
Yeah.
sort of little elements of integration across the rest of the M365 apps in this case are going to be necessary for people to not feel too, I'm trying to think of the right word, just sort of too put out by the limitations of transitioning to this new version.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting too, because we were talking as we were doing kind of the pre-show stuff, Chris, about how you really haven't interacted with this feature all that much, but this is actually my preferred way of sharing files when I'm working on a Word document or a PowerPoint, is I like to go to File and then Share and then hit
Sure.
the email button. It's been a pain in the butt because I go to share and like you got a Mappy error when you tried to send it earlier when we were talking about it in pre-show. And for me, like it just opens up a second instance of Outlook on my machine, and then it pops up all the meetings that I've missed, and my email is cached from like 2 weeks prior, and it's just, it's not a great experience. You may also, if you're using a different email signature in the old Outlook because you haven't touched it in a while, it'll try and apply that to the email. So this is a good change. I'm excited that it's finally happening. They had just started rolling it out in September, and it was actually interesting for me because last week I went to send an email and it actually did open in the new Outlook. And I was talking with Holly offline, and I was like, oh, hey, they finally moved this feature over. This is fantastic. I've been waiting forever for this. And then this week I tried to do the same thing again, and it opened me in the old Outlook. So I don't know if they had it wasn't fully rolled out or they slightly rolled it back, but for further testing. But this is a feature that's coming. Very exciting times to see that more and more stuff just keeps finding its way into the new Outlook. What I'm really looking for past this change with the new Outlook is, hey, it's great you're getting all that feature parity over. Start showing us some new features in the new
Yeah.
Outlook. And I'm sure that we'll probably start to see that more as we get into 2025. Who knows? Maybe we even learn a little bit more about Ignite. One new feature that was actually added was the meeting recaps, which we talked about a month and a half ago on the show. Those
Yep.
are finally popping up directly in meeting invites in Outlook, or the new Outlook. So
Right.
more to come on this, but you can expect that feature will start rolling out soon.
Yeah, and just another kind of comment on it too. I could see. I mean, this is absolutely going to be necessary because while, as you noted, I don't typically use that share button from within Word and PowerPoint and Excel myself. I just have, I don't know, muscle memory with the workflow that I like to do, where I just drag stuff into the Outlook window and all that. But I mean, the way that when I just attempted it during pre-show and it tried to automatically open Office 2016 for some reason, which I don't have installed, by the way, and then produce that MAPI error along with it, that would be a service desk nightmare once companies do start transitioning to new Outlook if this weren't accounted for. So
Yeah.
definitely hoping that we see more of these enhancing fixes brought to the new Outlook to make sure that as it becomes more of the mainstream variant of Outlook, that we're not on the IT side struggling with the volume of service desk tickets that could come from these kinds of eccentricities.
All right, Chris, I'll let you take the next one up here about Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, this one's message ID MC8888889. Roadmap ID 41138 or 411138. Boy, I'm struggling with the nomenclature today, but this one happens to do with Teams blocking users for your organization. So I happen to find this one pretty compelling in the sense that as more and more, from a Teams perspective, there are these random attempts by external parties to communicate with your users. There are going to be circumstances where you just want to block because it's spam, or could be in a theoretical sense, at least, a malicious party that's attempting to phish somebody through Teams. There's probably, I would bet, certain side effects to this, or not side effects maybe, but unintended yet handy aspects to it where it's not a malicious party per se. It's just somebody that's over persistent trying to communicate with your users or some
Yep.
other type of thing. And we just want to have that ability to safely block them from ever being able to instant message or otherwise communicate through Teams to anyone in our company.
Chris, are
And
you
that
saying that
hasn't
as a
really
sales
been
representative, you don't want to learn more about
right. Yeah,
B2B
exactly.
business sales?
Exactly. A jilted ex-employer, something like that keeps trying to hit us up. Who knows? But yeah, it's nice that they're bringing that in a simple and effective way to the admin center instead of trying to do it through code or API-driven events that weren't necessarily always fully effective, and now making it a little bit more universally accessible to admins to apply should be a nice quality of life improvement.
Yep. And this is going to start rolling out late October, it looks like, should be available for most organizations by early November. From an admin perspective, there's really not a whole lot that you need to do to enable the feature. It'll just kind of roll out, but admins will have to go in and set up a list to add these blocks if you want to block a certain thing. So we talked about the help desk in the previous message. This is going to be an important thing to communicate out to your organization that, hey, if you need a user blocked, submit a ticket to your help desk
Right.
so that it can get to your M365 admin so that they can take care of that. I'm sure that there'll probably be some stuff behind the scenes in the admin center where you can see like people keep reaching out externally and the message keeps getting denied. And then, hey, maybe we reactively block this or proactively block this. But yeah, always rely on your help desk as that central point of contact for this kind of stuff. Just makes it a little bit easier to report.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it with the idea that because it's off by default, as it says right in the message, it's going to be necessary for IT admins that are, especially the admins that are correlating to Teams, to remind themselves that this exists as it rolls out in October. But then also, to your point, use the service desk incident data from your ITSM platform to inform maybe some proactive aspects of how you can get in front of this, where
Yep.
the user's not necessarily going to outright come and say, I need to block this person, but they might be opening tickets to say, like, I keep getting these random messages or what have you. Great. Let's use those ticket details and event correlation to drive what we focus on for which domains, which users get blocked and that sort of thing. I don't necessarily expect that we're going to see this universally known within IT, like exactly which people to block at all times. They're going to need to get that insight from the user base. So
Is
yeah.
this the new Prince of Nigeria email in Teams, Chris?
Well, if this takes the world by storm and everyone starts using it, that probably gets used less and less as a vector, just because everyone's going to assume it's impossible to break into most organizations this way because they'll just block me. And so hopefully we do
Yep.
see a lot of companies take advantage of it, including ourselves.
Yep. For sure. All right. I've got the next one up here. And Chris, we talked about this in the pre-show. This is a good change. So Message Center MC 888872. Microsoft OneDrive is getting a new feature where it will prompt you when you go to delete an item out of your OneDrive. So if OneDrive detects that you've shared that document, it's still an active share out there, it's going to give you a little bit more of a message. And I'll actually scroll down so you can see the screenshot here, basically saying that, hey, are you sure that you want to delete these shared items? If you delete these, they're going to go to your recycle bin, but you're breaking the share when you delete the item. So you'll get basically a message that pops up. It looks like a file explorer prompt here. And then it's very similar to kind of like mass deletion. So if you've ever gone into your OneDrive and you're like, I don't need this folder stuff anymore, it's all archive data and I'm going to dump it, it'll ask you, are you sure you want to get rid of this? And then it'll say, hey, you can keep it. You can delete all items. You actually get an email on this as well today that if you delete a whole bunch of items, it comes, I think, like maybe 15, 30 minutes later right now saying, hey, just so that you're aware, a whole bunch of stuff just got dumped from your OneDrive. Are you sure that you want that to be in the recycle bin? So this is really, it's a good feature addition, I feel like, that's going to start rolling out in the middle of September. So again, right now, and it should be out by early October for everyone. Though, dates shift. We've seen this quite a bit with Message Center. But yeah, I think that overall, it's a good feature for users because I think that a lot of times, like when you're kind of sitting closer to like the ceiling on like knowing all the Microsoft 365 products and just being a higher level power user, you know exactly what you're doing most of the time. But when you're kind of sitting a little bit lower, customer service users or just more kind of basic frontline workers, is you might delete things and not realize that, hey, I have this shared with 3 different organizations.
Right.
They're referencing this file regularly, and then suddenly it doesn't exist for them anymore. So I think that overall, this is a great change, and I'm excited to see it roll out.
Yeah, I kind of liken it to the handiness that I gain from, I know I've used or benefited from many times when you're writing an Outlook email and you hit send and it pops up a little prompt that says, it looks like you meant to attach something. Are you sure you want to hit send on this without an attachment? Boy, does that save me all the time. You get
Yep.
in the mix of workflow and all that. I kind of liken this to that kind of thing where it's like, as you work on your OneDrive cleanup or you just happen to be going through files and executing some delete actions, it's a nice check to say, oh, did you realize that you were about to delete something that's still actively shared? And that has bit me a few times where I just, I was done with it. I didn't need it anymore, but somebody else was relying on it. And I just didn't even pay attention to the little icon next to the file in my file explorer that noted that it was being shared, or just didn't, just you get busy and you just start clicking stuff. And so
Yep.
this will be a really nice sort of double check.
And it's worth calling out too at the end here that this is the way that this is positioned is it's for local OneDrive. So if you're using OneDrive Sync and you have stuff kind of shared that way, this is where this prompt's coming up. I don't know how this is going to work if you're just using the cloud version. So obviously you're not going to get a file explorer prompt, but I'm wondering if there's going to be some sort of baked in functionality that's either there already and I haven't seen it. So I don't think that it exists today, or
Sure.
if this is something that they plan for down the road, that if you're deleting something from OneDrive.Cloud.Microsoft, which we'll talk about here in a second, is it going to give you that same sort of notification that, hey, are you sure this is a shared
Right.
file? Something that we'll certainly follow up on the future if we see more come through Message Center on it. All right, so we've got 2 more Message Center announcements for this week. Both of them are fairly quick. I'll take both. We'll kind of talk back and forth on them. But the first one is, and this is from August 2024, so we're a little bit past that now in September, but we've been talking about it throughout the year. We've done some announcements in our newsletter about that, which if you're interested, you can sign up by visiting Virteva.com. Microsoft is transitioning to a new top-level domain. So previously it was kind of the app name.microsoft.com. They now have a .microsoft top-level domain internally, and they're switching a lot of that stuff to Cloud.Microsoft domain name. So Message Center ID MC878423. Product transitions to Cloud.Microsoft.com are now going to be inclusive of Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint, and Microsoft Word. So previously, to get to these domains, you would go to excel.microsoft.com or powerpoint.microsoft.com, and you'd be forced to log in with your Entra ID information or your company email address, password, multi-factor authentication. That's going to change. It's now going to be excel.cloud.microsoft. Not a whole lot to do from a user perspective because there's going to, of course, be DNS redirects in place to get you to this new place. But as you're informing your help desk or informing your IT teams, you may want to go through and do some updates on just general knowledge-based documentation. Also, if you do anything kind of funky or super hyper specific with your own internal DNS, and your firewall could potentially block these as malicious, you may want to go in and make sure that you're whitelisting these domains just to
Yep.
make sure that users are able to get to them. I think for organizations that probably have an E3 or an E5, this isn't really going to hit you all that hard, specifically because most of the applications you're using are probably the desktop clients. But for organizations that might be more frontline focused, or maybe you don't always deploy the heavier applications to older machines, or maybe people are working more off tablets, is this may be more of an effect on those folks. So this is really just a heads up that this product transition is continuing to happen. I feel like we're getting closer and closer to the end of it. They announced it at Ignite last year. It started happening in December of 2023, and we're getting close to the end of 2024 now. So, just make sure that the general awareness is out there that this is starting to hit some of those more impactful applications.
Yeah, and I don't see Microsoft removing the redirects anytime soon. So I don't suspect there's going to be any major end user confusion, frustration, or issues, at least for the foreseeable future. But to your point, yeah, making sure from an IT perspective, we have our network whitelists updated to account for these new domains,
Yep.
the new domain, and then the associated subdomain elements. But yeah,
And there
it's going to make everything consistent over time.
And there's a Learn article in this Message Center posting too for a full list of the product experience that are changing domain names. And I'll make sure that that gets added to the show notes specifically so that you can click right through that link. I know one of the comments that we've gotten from users a lot of times is, hey, you give us the Message Center link, but we don't always have the ability to click it because you need an admin account to go see it. So that's another one of the reasons why we try to provide the roadmap links as well, or at least the IDs, so that you can go to the Microsoft roadmap and look that stuff up if you don't have access to Message Center. So yeah, one more link that we'll put in the show notes this week. All right, and another quick one, and this is going to be Message Center ID MC862983. This is an update to Microsoft Copilot and how they are referring to commercial data protection. So if you're a longtime listener of the show, or you've worked with us previously on different projects or Copilot CEP, you have heard us refer to Microsoft's data protection as commercial data protection.
Right.
Well, they've decided that they're going to change the name of this next month. So it's going to start rolling out in mid-September through October to enterprise data protection for users with an Entra account. The feature removes advertisements from the interface, which I haven't personally really seen, but I also layer ad blockers across as much stuff as I can. In fact, I have a pie hole in my house to make sure that I am filtering out every advertisement imaginable. But for some users that may have had a business account or not been necessarily signed in, maybe you were using copilot.microsoft.com and you were catching advertisements showing up in there because that's more the public portal. Well, when you log in with your Entra account now, those advertisements they're saying are being removed. Outside of that, I don't really see, for enterprises at least, a big change outside of just the naming is changing from commercial to enterprise. The features across the board and the way that it interacts with your Microsoft Purview environment, your data protection labels, your SharePoint sites, all that is the same. Microsoft's not making any changes to train Copilot on your data. They're just giving it kind of a fresh take and a fresh name. Though I would say if I was a business standard or a business premium customer, the change to enterprise data protection comes off as a little bit weird. Wouldn't you agree, Chris, from commercial?
I don't know. I'm still a little nervous about any sort of unclear aspects to all of this between enterprise data protection and commercial data protection, if there is going to still remain any sort of mutually exclusive element to the two, or if this really is just a name change. So I've tried to hedge and say, from everything that we've been able to interpret, it's mostly just a name change. Although, as the Message Center brief gives some detail on, it does seem like it's bringing the availability of that, in this case, enterprise data protection layer beyond just having an E3, E5 business premium business standard license, and even for those Entra ID free accounts that some organizations also use in their environments, even for those unlicensed users that don't have full Office 365 or M365 licensing associated to them. At least now we can have some of that data protection capability and not just the consumer Copilot experience for them as well.
Yeah.
So that's
And
probably the bigger takeaway here.
And I think one of my takeaways to it on, especially because right at the summary level of the message, they specifically call like that ad-free tier. And this is something that I haven't really seen in Copilot for non-commercial or non-enterprise users yet, is a lot of advertisements being pushed into kind of Copilot.Microsoft.com. I wonder if this is kind of like the first step to maybe we're going to start seeing a little bit more advertisements like pop up, like the typical kind of like an ad block window shows up in there where you see like an advertiser drop something in there. What I'm hoping this doesn't mean is that the plan is to eventually like, hey, I go in as a non-commercial or enterprise user to copilot.microsoft.com and I put a prompt in about, hey, how do I make beef stew? And suddenly I'm being fed advertisements through the text prompts. Hey, you should try using these products. I'm not saying that that is coming, but when they're specifically calling out the ad-free experience, it worries me. It gives me a little bit of hesitation, though Microsoft, just like Google and Meta and all the other big seven out there, they make a lot of their money off of advertising. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it. But again, as an enterprise or a business customer, the promise here is that you won't see that. But we may start to see that more in our personal lives, especially as these big companies that are running a lot of these large language models. ChatGPT just released their O1 model earlier this week. They have to find a way to pay for this stuff. It can't be free forever. And the easiest way to pay for that is to allow people to kind of sponsor and run advertisements in it. So again, not coming to the commercial versions of these products, but just something to be aware of that we may start to see roll out more over the coming months ahead. All right, Chris. Well, thanks again for being on the show this week. Appreciate you making time. There was a big Microsoft Security Summit that happened on the 10th. We were actually planning on sitting down and talking about that today in our Let's Talk format, but because it was a closed conference with those different security providers, there's just been no information released on it yet at this time. So I am anticipating that we'll probably hear more about that over the coming weeks. If not, we'll probably hear about that at Ignite. Chris, you and I are actually going to be at Ignite coming up third week of November. So for anyone that attends Ignite, be on the lookout for us. We'd love to meet up with you in person. I've certainly loved interacting with the audience through our Microsoft Forums poll that we keep in the show notes on YouTube and on our audio podcast feed. Would love to, get a chance to talk with more of you and get some feedback on the show and just kind of shoot the breeze. Other than that, there is going to be another Wave 2 Copilot announcement here coming up, I think, third or fourth week of September. And Holly and I are planning on unpacking that on a future Let's Talk podcast. So it's going to be really interesting. That one, it's weird. It's only being hosted on LinkedIn for some reason, though I imagine that it will show up on YouTube probably.
Yeah.
They haven't given a whole lot of detail on it yet, but I imagine that they're probably going to talk about new features and enhancements coming to the current Copilot experience, as well as maybe we'll finally get to learn a little bit more about what that Teams Copilot experience is, or at least a preview of it ahead of Ignite in November. Thanks for tuning in. And if there were any announcements today that you want to dig further into, we always make sure that we make those available in the show notes on YouTube and on the Podbean page. If your organization is interested in learning more about Microsoft 365, or you're already using it and you need help implementing or adopting new features or services, you can contact Virteva by emailing us at letstalk@virteva.com or by visiting our website at www.virteva.com. Chris, thanks again for being on the show this week. And if you made it this far, please don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons. It really helps us out. Take care all.